Have you ever looked over your kid's shoulder at their math homework and just thought, wait a second, this looks nothing like the math I did? Yeah, you're definitely not alone. The way math is taught has, well, it's changed a lot. So today, we're going to pull back the curtain and see what's really going on in a 5th grade math class in Thailand.
So here's what we're going to cover. First, why all the change? Then, we'll map out what 5th graders are actually learning. We'll even take a close look at a real lesson on parallel lines. After that, we'll get into the how, the new teaching methods, and finally, we'll talk about what all this means for you. All right, let's jump right in. All right, Section 1, Math for a New Era. So, first things first, right? The big question. Why change things? I mean, why mess with a classic like math? Well, the answer? It's about way more than just crunching numbers. And this quote from the official curriculum guide, it really says it all. The goal is to align with Thailand 4.0 and the 21st century world. So this isn't just change for the sake of change. It's about getting kids ready for a future that, let's be honest, looks pretty different from the world a lot of us grew up in. It demands a whole new set of skills.
So what does that actually mean for a 10-year-old doing their homework? Well, it means we're shifting the focus, big time. It's less about just memorizing multiplication tables over and over and more about building skills they can actually use in the real world. We're talking about building critical thinking, developing problem-solving chops, and getting them ready for a future that is, packed with technology.
Okay, so let's get down to the nitty-gritty. What does this new approach actually look like day to day? Let's map out the entire journey a 5th grader takes in math over a whole school year.
Okay, so the official curriculum has about 12 units, but you can really boil it down to these 3 main areas. First up, you've got numbers and operations. That's all your fractions, decimals, and percentages. Then they move into geometry and measurement, which is about the world around them. Things like parallel lines, volume, you get the idea. And finally, it all culminates in data and applications. This is where they learn how to read charts and use all that math to solve some really tricky, real-world problems.
And hey, this isn't just some abstract theory. If you look at this screenshot here from an online resource called True Pluk Punya, you'll see these exact same unit titles pop up. This structure is the real deal. It's the backbone for thousands of practice questions and exams out there. This is the official roadmap they're all following.
All right, theory is great, but to really see the difference, we need to get our hands dirty. Let's zoom in and take a closer look at just one of these units, parallel lines. This is where you can really see the new philosophy in action.
Now this is cool. What you're looking at here is a peek behind the curtain. It's a mind map from the actual teacher's guide for the parallel lines unit. And you can see, a topic like this isn't just thrown at the students all at once. Nope, it's a journey. They start with the absolute basics, like what a parallel line even is. Then they learn how to draw them, and it builds all the way up to using pure logic to prove if lines are parallel or not.
So a student might get a problem that looks just like this. It's kind of like a visual puzzle, right? But here's the key difference. The goal isn't for them to just look at it and say, yeah, those look parallel to me. The real question, the question for this new era is, how can you prove it? What's your logic? Show me the evidence.
And boom, here's the magic. The answer isn't a number, it's a rule. It's a piece of pure logic. The kids learn that if these specific angles, they're called alternate interior angles, if they are equal, then the lines have to be parallel. It's not a guess, it's a fact, a universal truth they can use anywhere. That's logical deduction, not just, eyeballing it.
So we've seen what they're teaching, but that's only half the story. Just as important is how they're teaching it. And this is where that big shift away from just memorizing stuff becomes crystal clear.
The whole thing is built around this idea called active learning. And really, the concept is super simple, but it's also incredibly powerful. It just means that students learn best by doing, not just by sitting there and listening. So they're encouraged to talk about ideas, to work together, and to get their hands on problems, which makes them, an active part of their own learning journey.
And this is all guided by a framework called the GPAS 5 steps. You can almost think of it like the scientific method, but for any kind of problem. Students learn this cycle. First, you gather your data. Then, you analyze it. Third, you come to a conclusion. Then, and this is important, you communicate what you found. And finally, you evaluate and improve. It's basically a repeatable recipe for how to think through a problem.
Okay, so we've covered the why, the what, and the how. Now, for the most important part. What does this all mean for you? For parents? For students? What's the bottom line? This really lays it all out, side by side. The old way, the one a lot of us grew up with, was all about memorizing formulas and just doing repetitive calculations. The teacher basically had all the answers. But this new way, it's all about understanding the big ideas behind the math so you can actually reason your way to an answer. It's a huge shift from focusing on what to calculate to understanding why you're doing it. So, the next time you're looking at that homework and it feels totally foreign, just remember this one thing. The goal isn't to create a bunch of human calculators. The real goal is to build thinkers, to raise kids who can tackle any problem, whether it's in a math book or out in the real world, with logic, creativity, and confidence.
And that really leaves us with one final big question to think about, doesn't it? How can we best support this new generation of critical thinkers? In a world that's changing so fast, our role has to change too. Maybe the focus shifts away from just asking, "Did you get the right answer?" and moves toward a much more powerful question. Hey, how did you figure that out? Because that's the conversation that's really going to build the thinkers of tomorrow.